Want to hone your craft as a digital marketer and get expert insights from thought leaders and industry experts? Welcome to the How I Work podcast. I'm your host, Josh Becerra, founder and president of Agurian. Follow us on Twitter at Agurian Tweets or subscribe to our YouTube channel for more great content. Now, here's the episode of the podcast. Hi everybody, this is Josh Becerra from Agurian. I'm here with Ryan Truax, Director of Marketing at Sportsdigita. Thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure, Josh.
Yeah, so Ryan and I, we've known each other for a little while. We have been talking digital marketing, had some lunches and dinners, and you have an amazing brain for this stuff, so I'm super excited to have this conversation.
What do you say?
Yeah, I've got a little bio. You have done a lot in your career, so from building an internal TV network for the U.S. largest fitness retailer, building brands or up-and-coming brands for SaaS companies, you have a ton of knowledge surrounding marketing. And with your affinity for all things creative and your newfound love for data, we're going to get into all of this stuff. I know that you are an awesome leader too in your company. Lead by example, definitely all about empowering your teams and helping them become their best selves.
Always the goal.
Yeah, for sure. So we're definitely aligned on those things.
Good to hear.
Let's talk a little bit about that career. So you've been in digital here in the Twin Cities, started at Lifetime. So tell the viewers a little bit about your past and how you ended up at Sportsdigita.
Yeah, I'd say it's so. My starting of my career was at Lifetime Fitness, obviously one of the biggest box retailers in the country, a preeminent brand in the healthcare, health and fitness, wellness space. Through it taught me a lot about the interactivity between the business and the consumer at the end of it, because it was all about an experience, experiential marketing, alongside of the digital, obviously, and all tangible goods associated with anything that's brick and mortar related. So. Right. That was an incredible experience because we were able to take something that didn't exist and bring it to life, that being a TV network that was broadcast over to 1 million. Through it, a lot of different tactics were applied, spent a lot of time with advertisers, understanding media buys, and some of the strategies that surround it, and then also content creation, which we all have an affinity for in the digital marketing age. So
yeah, for sure.
That led me to get into SaaS. A number of people came knocking on my door a few different times, and I've been in SaaS now for the last 8 years, B2C, B2B, and then now B2B as well. So kind of a diverse offering of experience, which has benefited me, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sure. And that the difference between kind of the big corporate and then like smaller startups, I know some of the SaaS you've been in on the ground floor or early anyway. Yeah. So what do you think you've learned about, if you compare and contrast those two environments, like what have you learned about yourself along the way?
Yeah, I'd start from a professional standpoint, from the business side of it. I think I've learned that B2B marketing and B2C marketing are more similar than they're often given credit for. I think that B2B, we often get a little stuffy, maybe a little kind of, we spend a lot of time analyzing ourselves as opposed to trying to meet people where their passion is. What we forget sometimes in a B2B marketing standpoint is that a lot of people are very passionate about the work they do. Right. B2C marketing tends to do an incredible job of intersecting where one's passion lies. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what I learned early on, is the B2C model could have applicability to, or application, to the B2B sector. So I started cultivating those thoughts early on, and that's really carried over to my SaaS career, where it's been a lot of B2B, B2C, and trying to unpack kind of the things that a consumer's always expecting. I don't care if it's the other side of the B coin, could be a consumer as well. Treat them as an entity.
It's a human.
It is a human often. So I think just a lot of that kind of cultivation of knowledge throughout the years has been really applicable to businesses that are trying to mature and then work through some of those where do we go from here kind of moments. So it was nice to work and start in a career that allowed me to look at something that's been built upon, that was mature, and was all about kind of iterative growth, taking that back, reverse engineering that back to its infancy, and then applying it to a business that needed that from the ground up. Yeah,
I mean, I think it's amazing how you're able to like take some of those learnings and then reapply them and bring it forward in the companies that you're in today. When we prepped for this, over lunch, we were talking about like the difference, pros and cons between ABM and spending dollars to drive volume, right, and awareness. And I thought you had some really interesting ideas and how you were thinking about that. So can you share that a little bit here too?
Yeah, absolutely. ABM, it's organizational fit, right? Everybody can throw those letters around. It's buzzy these days and has been for some time, but you really have to be ready as an organization. It's not just a marketing-led initiative. It is an organizational shift. Yeah. And it's wise of an organization that sees that in their future to start teasing it. So what have I been doing at Sportsdigita recently? I'd be kidding myself if I was to say I could roll out a full ABM strategy with the staff I have in place, but I can see in the near distance, or near future, that will be an option. But you have to start seeding that methodology, the thoughts around it, and aligning sales and marketing in a way that maybe previously weren't.
Sure.
And looking at the account level, what can marketing do to truly move an account forward based upon a variety of tactics, both digital and as well And I think that if I was to kid myself and say that my team was ready to do so, I would lose the traction we built in more of a volume-based model right now. You're out there, you're looking at a wide prospect list, you're trying to whittle it down to an ICP, but to try to insert ABM tactics along that journey would be fractured right now. It's all about meeting the prospect or the customer where they're at in their buyer life cycle. And as you get later stages, obviously ABM becomes incredibly powerful, but if I employ the tactics where our organization is at today, early and often, I'd have some misses.
Right.
I wouldn't be meeting where they're at. I wouldn't be delivering the value that expect of me. So right now, although I could take the money I have available in my budget to go buy the best ABM tech in class, drop it in, build a team around it, organization, we're not quite ready yet.
Yeah.
And that's okay to accept. And sometimes that's a harsh truth that punches you in the gut and you say, boy, I wish we were there today, but it's not quite there. That's okay, because again, it's all about organizational fit. If you are there and your company's mature enough, dive all in on it.
Yeah.
Specifically if you're spending a lot of time in the enterprise or mid-market sectors. If you're SMB or B2C, obviously it's something that's not going to be as applicable to you, but if you find yourself trying to go upstream as many SaaS businesses are, if you're not entertaining it, to do more research around it, and then really look at the tactical level, what works for your business, and for that ICP as well, because certain things are work for others, and ABM is not a one-size-fits-all. It's very custom, it's very tailored to the individuals inside of that kind of account. So I think it's more about budget management and not getting out over your skis, right? Because again, it's the sexy terminology, it's been around for some time, people think it's the kind of the silver bullet. We all know there's no silver bullet, or we don't be using it. So it's protecting the budget and getting the best usage out of it current day to align with the business needs and objectives. And that for us is more of a demand by volume right now, because we have a lot of AEs in our team right now that we need to feed. And based upon my team's fit right now, we just have to be more of a volume model than a kind of down the funnel, sit alongside of ABM and run a parallel with the sales team.
Yeah, it's interesting. A couple of things. So I think there is like organizational readiness is a real thing. I think like there has to be alignment around philosophically. What are we trying to accomplish? There's like a mindset that needs to exist. And if you don't have those things, then it's really hard to just, like you said, you can't just drop something in and make it go. So you brought up sales and how you work with sales. Sounds, you have a lot of account managers compared to your marketing headcount. Managing those relationships with sales, it's super important. So what have you done, or what have you found effective or helpful when like approaching sales?
Yeah, one of the things my team is probably sick of me saying is the absolute attention on internal selling that is required. It's just education, it's informative at times, but we get a little assumptive in what we think the sales team knows that marketing is doing, and that's where I think there's the gaps that fall off. Is that there's this lack of perception of value. What are you doing? How does it apply to kind of my world, that being the AE's world? So I think in a world in which we move so fast in SaaS, we have to over communicate, and to the point of nausea. Like sometimes we think, boy, that redundancy is going to get a little. But in fact, when you're moving that fast, things are often left in the wake of the conversation.
Sure.
So I think there's a time for redundancy in conversation, but really what we do is we have a lot of different touch points. So we have 3 pods that are led by directors, and we have different settings in which we talk to different, kind of internal clients, and that's directly to the AEs in a setting that's led by their director, so that's a weekly touch point. Then we also have a secondary touch point, which is the directors and myself and then my senior campaign manager, in which we're talking at a little more high-level strategy. We take that strategy and we walk it back for the AEs on more of a one-to-one basis, let them know that they're being cared for and that their voice is heard from us as well. And it's that back and forth where they start to see the reciprocation of their voices being heard, the tactics and their asks of the team are being now met. So I think communication, although often talked about and all those things that are just table stakes, is essential. And it's not just the head of marketing, the head of sales talking. It's at the individual contributor level. You have to empower your team and encourage them and to ask them to get uncomfortable. Not everybody is. And as a marketer, who might be a little introverted perhaps, which isn't always the case, but you go to an AE who's certainly not going to be, that can be an intimidation barrier, but you as a leader must find a way to empower that individual to overcome that barrier so that we're truly communicating and level setting between the 2 departments. So I think it's a lot that leaders can do, of course, but when you empower those who are at the boots on the ground kind of level to have that conversation, you don't have to run it by me. If there's something you think you can do to move the needle for them at this point in time, bring that to their attention. It doesn't have to be a formalized meeting. Cooler talk, down the hallway talk, meet them at their stand-up desk, in their office, wherever it might be, and take that opportunity to show the value that we can bring to them, and then have a discussion around it. So I think individual contributor up to the leaders, you have to just have a frequency of meetings that continually take place, and do your damnedest to not cancel those meetings as well, to try and maintain on them and say, we don't have a lot to talk about this week. Use that platform for more ideated discussions.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out, and honestly, again, it harkens back to the fact that we're people. Account managers are people, and they just want to feel like they're empowered. They want to feel like they're being heard and listened to. And on the marketing side of things, we want to understand what they need, and we want to we're all on the same team. And I think many times it becomes very kind of adversarial or confrontational, and it all comes down to like that lack of communication or just treating each other like people, right?
Yeah, it's that shared empathy for one another, right?
Yeah.
Like to Josh's point here, we are human first, and if we lead with an empathetic edge, we understand each other better, we level set and see the challenge that party is dealing with at that point in time. So how do we solve those challenges and acknowledge them and not ignore them and just say, that's sales problem, that's marketing's problem.
Yeah.
No, if we're walking and talking in the same line, we're better together than we are individually. So try to get together and collaborate as much as you can. Again,
happy hour.
Whatever it might take. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So let's shift gears a little bit. We talked about people and relationships and things. Let's talk a little bit more about like KPIs, goal setting, and all of those things. So you operate on this 90-day goal setting cadence, right?
Yes.
You've got sprints, and so tell us a little bit about like that cadence, the value unit. I know we've talked about OKRs and things like that.
Yeah. I think when you talk about SaaS specifically, you're inherently in a fluid environment. If you're 100 ARR, if you're 5 ARR, it's a fluidity you have to embrace and acknowledge. And I, as much as like with any other leader, to look 12 months out, 9 months out, 6 months out. But sometimes what you find is that time could be wasted because the business shifts so quickly, as is your consumer base. So we look at 90-day kind of cycles and what can we accomplish inside of that? How do those goals align with the business needs? And then use like more of a rock and pebble based mentality. What can we do to move that pebble closer to the finish line? And then it supports the boulders or the rocks that are sitting in front of us. So I think it also keeps a very clear path for leadership to understand what are they doing, are they meeting their goals, is it measurable? It's outside of some of the data points they always so commonly refer to in marketing. And the sprints that sit inside of that help people feel fulfilled. When you have objectives that take 6, 8, 12 weeks, success is elusive.
That grind.
That lack of completion is a grind, and it wears on someone. So if you can look at smaller bites of the apple and show that to the team, like in a 5-day sprint and a 10-day business cycle, we can accomplish this.
Yeah.
And you watch the satisfaction in the individuals that are doing the work. It's incredibly empowering. So when we take that sprint and we start it over again, there's enthusiasm, there's momentum behind it, and there's a freshness to initiative that we know is 12 weeks long, but our wins are small and they amount to something large at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it helps us become a little more stay in the moment as opposed to, I see the finish line, I'm just going to do whatever I need to do, and I may take some steps to get there quicker than I should.
Yeah.
Just because who doesn't want to finish the race a little early if they can?
Yeah, I also feel like it offers or provides an opportunity for like leadership even, because you have to manage expectations up as well. Take those bite-sized chunks as well, because otherwise leaders can get like way out ahead of their skis and they're thinking about these big initiatives, these 12 to 18 month things. And if we can break that down into little bite-sized chunks, it helps them as leaders stay on track, and us as marketers remind them that, hey, like we said this is our next best step, this is what we're going to do.
And I think it's important too, is it brings leadership closer to the tactics. Now, not every organization has the time in which to unpack the tactics. They typically look at the outcomes and say, I don't care how you got there, you got me the outcomes I was expecting or hoping for. But when you bring them closer to the tactics and have real-time discussions around the things that you're doing to drive the business forward at that kind of, again, tactical level, they feel very close to you.
Yeah.
And it's empowering, and you're building equity in a relationship. So when you do go out on a ledge for the next day, I'm going to try something a little radical, you have equity now to do. Right. It's not like you're always having to prove one's self-worth, because they see the multiplicity of the work that you're doing from a tactical level, so much so that you're going to get runway in the future when you want to take that kind of radical progressive step. And I think a lot of marketers want to take those steps, and they struggle with it. They say leadership will never give me the allowance to do. Did you get the buy-in and build the equity reliant upon that big ask that you just made? Question yourself, and you've really got to look yourself in the mirror, because people think that they have, but if leadership looks at you sideways, either there was a miscommunication or you didn't build the equity you thought. So now when that ask comes up, you're probably going to get shot down, especially if there's a budget line tied to it as well. So
for sure.
It's about equity building, in my opinion. And again, just transparency and candor always works with leadership.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
So again, I'm just feel like I'm a broken record on this video, but leaders are people too, right? Invest in the relationship, bring them into the work you're trying to accomplish, help them understand it, educate them up. That it's our job to do all of those things. That's where you build that equity.
100%. Like you said, leaders are people. They want to be informed, and when they feel misled is when you have these gaps. And if you're communicating effectively, you're not going to have gaps, and the challenging conversations become less confrontational. They become more just a discussion about the actions you're currently taking.
Yeah.
It's just a better way of going about it, and again, in my opinion, of course. But
I think you're right.
Well,
we share the opinion, and since we're making the video, we get to say it.
Power of numbers.
That's right, exactly. All right, a couple more questions. So let's talk customer journey.
Yes.
Super important. We talk a lot about it on these videos. So explain kind of what you're doing at Sportsdigita, what's working for you with the customer journey.
Yeah, I'll down to two quick things right away. It's about exchange of value. My team constantly hears me talk about if we're not providing value at every touch point, we're not doing our job. Because this day and age, we're inundated with information in a way we never have been before. So people's time is the commodity in which we truly trade in. So I'm going to ask for your time. I damn well be ready to give you the value you expect of us.
Yeah, exactly.
The customer journey that we've been able to build is obviously around automation, if-then logics. If you choose to do this, you get this bit of information. But it's really the content that supports that kind of if-then logic, and then based upon your interactivity with it, what's served you next. And again, if we provide value at every touch point, despite your inactivity or activity, there's going to be this really fluid relationship of they get me, they understand the things that I'm seeking out, we're addressing pain and we're exchanging value and we're selling on the outcomes that we can achieve together. Yeah. And those ingredients will mix together. But when I look at the customer journey, it's about a nurture. If you're mid-market to enterprise, your customer journey is probably quite robust and goes on for months and months. B2C, that customer journey is likely quite short because of the very competitive nature of that sector. Sure. And you're going to have to be everywhere in front of them.
Putting in a shopping cart and I'm buying it.
Yeah. So I have to work on user experience and UI to be just in milliseconds that first person. But when I look at customer journey, mid-market, and enterprise, I start to think about more of a nurtured sequence that, again, finding them at the time that they're seeking out the solutions that you can provide them. So it's half of how do you write your automation rules? When are they not too busy to take that email or to download that piece of content or engage in a presentation or to watch that video? Yeah. Trying to dissect your buyer persona in which way you understand where those pockets of time are in which they can interact with you. And then that exchange of value becomes a great, again, just an exchange that it is. I think it's just meeting people where they're at when they want to be met there, and then giving them things that exceed their expectations, and if not, create a way in which you can have an open discussion about the needs that they have. Yeah,
no, I think you're completely right. Time is a currency. My email is a currency, for me to put an email in a form, I really need to feel like I'm going to get value from it.
Same way.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you're right on there.
Yeah,
super smart.
That's one thing I talk about too, is imagine yourself, what does it take to get you to fill up four or five fields in a form? It's a bigger and bigger ask because if you're an enterprise and mid-market sales, you understand what that form submission means. BDRs, SDRs hit me up both on LinkedIn, I'm getting calls, I'm getting texts, and I know that's happening as soon as I click submit. Right. So for my willingness to receive that, I better deem it to be extremely valuable and important, and that I'm excited about the engagement that sports coming to me.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we create awesome content, so that people can consume it.
That is the goal.
Okay, so last question, I always ask this of every guest basically is, what are you reading now, podcasts, what's influencing your thinking, who's out there that you think is really smart? Tell us.
Yeah, so I'm not a prolific literary, admittedly. I do a lot of absorption from seeing things, those things that are around me, just pulling in things that I think are valuable and discarding those.
Well, it could be a company that you're seeing they're doing an awesome job.
Yeah, and actually I would take that and quickly parlay into DRMG is currently a SaaS consultancy here, not necessarily in Twin Cities, it's a national organization, but Dustin Robertson's a CMO I previously worked for at Lead Pages and Drip back in the day, and he's, in my mind, one of the more prolific, progressive CMOs I've ever seen. He and a colleague of his started a consulting business called DRMG. They have a podcast out right now, and they just spew prolific things all day long.
Just dropping knowledge bombs.
Just knowledge. Dustin taught me one thing long ago, and it says the greatest marketing lives on the edge of controversy. Just knowing that you need to toe the line. If you fit in with the masses, you're not going to stand up from the competition. How do you disrupt a category? If you're going to go in to fit in, if you're just going to say, I'll just look like the other competitors, success is going to be elusive. But disrupting that category is where it's all at. So DRMG and their podcast, hosted by Ryan Copperwood, who's another prolific SaaS leader and has been for many. What they do and what they unpack in a short amount of time is really, it's how I think people should be more thinking about their business and the long-term thoughts, and how do you find message and product market fit in ways that haven't been really normalized. So I love those guys, and you can find them anywhere. Take a listen to them. I like many others. The LinkedIn feed is now a repository of all kinds of information. There's thought leadership everywhere, and if you just cherry pick headlines that stick out to you, it in itself, in 3 to 4 to 5 minutes, you can find some really good applicable stuff. And I'm actually one of those guys who doesn't mind a webinar these days yet still too. If it has a lot of value, people are throwing some incredible virtual events on very specified topics. So it's no longer just sitting up in the clouds at 30,000 feet and you're like, heard it all, nothing new here. I think people are getting better about providing actionable content so that you can apply it to your business tomorrow. So I'm not, as we talked about ABM earlier, I'm looking at solutions like a Terminus or a demand base. they throw out some pretty good content, I'm going to engage with it as well.
Yeah.
So I look at more bite-sized content as opposed to someone may read a 300-page book, but
Right.
I'm looking to pull little nuggets every day, really. So
Awesome. Thanks. I haven't heard of those guys, so I'm going to go check that
give them
out
a check.
for sure.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you coming in and doing this with us. This has been great. You've also been dropping some knowledge bombs, so I hope all of you take a little bit of value from what we've done here today. So thanks, Ryan, and we're just going to say goodbye for now.
It's my pleasure. Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the How I Work podcast with Josh Becerra. If you like what you heard, make sure you subscribe. To learn more about Augurian and for more digital marketing tips and insights, head to augurian.com.